see beyond first egos.
Yes. That's good. Very good.
Good morning. My first 17 years was something is an unforgettable period of my life, I should say, at least till now. I started growing up in a small town down at the southeastern tip of India, which if we can call it as a town, used to be called Thoothukudi in those days and Tuticorin now. Famous for two things, salt and pearl. Everything was fine. Born to a couple, a teacher and an excellent homemaker and a cook with another 4 siblings, and running around on the streets of that small town in the dirty roads was fun that I learned my life. At the age of 10, I was in the 5th standard. 10 and 11, two important things happened in my life. At 5, I studied in a Tamil medium school till the 11th standard, till the 16th. For the first time, I started saying A, B, C, D when I was 10 years old and started singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, which probably last night I was having a dinner in a restaurant about which we were discussing earlier before waiting for the audience. 1-year-old kid started talking to me in an English which I felt ashamed of. That was the first thing. 1 year later, at the age of 11, when I moved in from the elementary school to the high school and started my 6th standard, I felt there was a compelling need for me to do something else to get that extra few rupees a month, which will make me buy what I want to do. It's all about eating. Being a kid, we don't aspire about anything. It's all about eating something which your friends eat, but you need money. You can't go home and ask that. That's sort of putting a burden on the family. So I found what I can do. Suddenly it occurred to me that I'm the one who was going out every morning at 6 o'clock to buy some vegetables for home. And I saw people when I come back, my neighbors looking at me, oh, you bought, what did you buy today? I went home and thought about it. Hey, why are they envious about me and my house, my home? So I thought of something. Since I'm going to the market in any case at 5 in the morning, I decided to buy not just a 1 kg and half kg, I decided to buy 8 kg. Those days you need to buy 8 kg as a minimum. If you have to buy an 8 kg of chili for 2 rupees, 8 kg of tomato for 1 rupee, I said, okay, look, I can afford to lock that 8 kg on both sides, come back and distribute to the neighborhood. You won't believe. I was making 20 bucks a week, big money in the early 50s, rather late 50s and early 60s. I could do that because my parents said something at that time, which the third dimension which added to my life. Whatever you do, don't cheat people. Whatever you do, you tell the truth and be honest. You do what you want. So that said, set apart a few things. I started making kites when there is wind. Sold it for foreigners. You can't even think of anything. I don't know how many of you have seen that water run out those days, which had a hole in the thing. It's what you call a polo talks about a mint with a hole. That was the thing. It had a buying power. It can buy an ice cream for you in front of the school gate. So but the third thing was that because sort of an advice, do what you want. Ended up selling kites, doing bookbinding, making money, and finished my SSLC in '69, and came the situation that you need to move out and do something else. Unfortunately for me, I'm a mutation, I'm an aberration in the whole family, but I wanted to be a doctor. Why? Because Christine Barnard in '68, '69 did a heart transplant. I wanted to be a surgeon who can transplant hearts. Nothing wrong, walking the line of lunacy as somebody was saying. But what happened was, I finally had to move to Chennai. In '70, joined my medicine. connecting the dots is easy, but I didn't know what was ahead of me, and what I did in my 5th and 6th standards is something is going to stand by me and take me through to this podium. Well, I did my medicine. I changed from my childhood fantasy of being a heart surgeon into being a good doctor and getting a specialist in diabetes. It all fine. I joined somewhere as a head of the department of medicine, which was good, and the destiny was that I need to go to UK for something which my professor cannot go, but I could manage to go to present a paper of mine, and I ended up getting an invitation the next year as a Commonwealth Foundation fellow to spend a few months there. So I went on a sabbatical to come back after 4 months to find that I have lost my job. Newly married, have a kid, and what happened? Lost the job. Losing the job was something which I wanted to do more than anything I was asked to do, simply because I didn't like the way in which I was treated. When I came back with several ambitions, I was sitting at home. That's why I said way back in '85, what I learned in my childhood, which I never knew the meaning of it. Somebody said those are all entrepreneurial traits in you. Well, I learned a few words: entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial, social entrepreneurship in the subsequent years to come. I ended up starting a pathology laboratory, for which I was not qualified, but I knew what a physician expects and what a patient needs. So put down that grind of thing in terms of honesty, ethical practices, and ended up starting something in 1985, which today is a brand in Chennai and brand across the country, for which I stepped out 7 years back. So life was wonderful, but it all came in my life. I have a 10-year itch, but the others have a 7-year itch. I have a 10-year itch. It was in 1995 when the first brand was doing extremely well. Me and my colleague were sitting and having a cup of tea, and she threw some data in front of me and said, look at these guys. These are about 130 people who had HIV, hepatitis B or hepatitis C. 60% of them have received a blood transfusion in the past 1 year. So all that we know here is a possible cause and effect, that something, the blood which was unsafe, is responsible for what's happening here. I asked her, what do you want us to do? I said, I think it's time we put whatever we learned and start a blood bank as a not-for-profit venture which will help people, and possibly we could contribute to the society. Well, I'll pause for a second here and talk about entrepreneurship or social entrepreneurship, whatever you call it. Dreaming can be done by one person. Be it your Apple or whichever brand you talk about, dreaming can be done by one person. When the dream has to become real, you need more than 2 hands, more than 1 brain, and it's a teamwork, and it gives us an opportunity to working together and creating something which you dream of. That is something which I'm very fortunate that it's always there. Like Andrew Carnegie said, the steel giant is not that he knew anything about steel, not that I knew anything about laboratory medicine, but keeping the right people around you and building the team is what helped you to build a brand and also end up reaching the rainbow that you want to reach. Well, it's all fine. We ended up starting a blood bank, making available the safest blood, changing the way in which the transfusion medicine or the blood safety is talked about in this country. It was made possible because of tens and thousands of voluntary blood donors, the technology which we knew, people who could support from the individuals to the corporates. Life went off very well until 2005, the next 10-year itch. That is really a crazy dream in 2005, when we are happily celebrating the 10th anniversary of not-for-profit social impact project. We went up on the podium and in front of media, make a statement, which possibly you should have thought several times about doing that. Look at, guys, there are 1.2 lakh Indians diagnosed with blood cancer every year. Another 10,000 children are born with a disease called thalassemia. A disease a child needs blood transfusion month after month as long as he or she lives, and succumb to the disease or to the complications of transfusion. And over 60 to 70% of these patients, I'm talking about Indians, can hope for a cure if only they have an access to a matching stem cells. The source in those days were what we used to call a bone marrow donors, and today the preferred source, the richest source, is the umbilical cord blood, which is being discarded after every single birth. In a country with 20 million births a year, with 20 million resources going down the drain, with lakhs and lakhs of patients who need the treatment, we had no place in India. So we said, let's set up a public, not-for-profit stem cell bank from donated umbilical cord blood, which will help Indians with blood cancers and thalassemia living globally find a source and hope for a cure. It's lunacy. Nothing existed, and you know, we need for this project 90 crores, and we said we will get it only as donations. We turned away PEs, we turned away VCs, and we said we have faith in one thing, so this will make it happen. Today what's happening is, if I go out and I'm diagnosed with blood cancer at 3 o'clock this afternoon, and my doctor says, this is the only cure, find a match. My chances of finding a match that's applicable to every Indian, you, me and everybody, wherever you live in USA, Timbuktu, Kazakhstan, everywhere, any Indian, the chances of finding a match in the international registry is less than 10%. But if we have our own, from the 20 million births which is happening in the equal number of cord bloods which are being discarded, our chances go up over 70% of finding a match. Okay, fine, I'm lucky. I find a match in Australia, but I need $45,000 to bring in a single unit of stem cell for treatment, which is beyond the reach of almost every single Indian with these two diseases. So we said, let's do it to ensure, to enable quick and affordable access to matching stem cells for the treatment of Indians with blood cancers and thalassemia and living globally. Someone I met in the train a few weeks back, he said, what are you doing? This is what we are doing, chasing a dream. Chasing a first few crores. I'm waiting for the epidemic to start. He started a yarn. It's obviously somebody, with due regards, it's obviously somebody who's been happy, settled in Chicago, and coming down to see a child which is studying in a convent in a South Indian hill station. I listened to the yarn for 15 minutes, how I should get him to talk to so-and-so, write to so-and-so. I was only hoping he's going to ask for my card and say that I'm sending you a donation. But that didn't happen. He went to bed, I slept, and came out. But before that all happened, he asked me one thing. Why should we bother? We have a healthcare system, such a fantastic thing in US. I asked him, where are you living? He said, he's in the Bay Area. I said, you call 10 people for lunch in the afternoon, and you really find out your wonderful cook, your wife says that at 11 o'clock in the morning, when 12:30 the guests have to come, I don't have something, an ingredient, an Indian ingredient, let's say asafoetida. It's not available. What will you do? Oh, it's pretty easy. I take a car, drive around a few kilometers. It's there on an Indian store. I said, okay, fine. At the end of the dinner, that you get a call that so-and-so doesn't have a blood cancer, need an Indian stem cell. Where will you go? We don't have a facility in India. That's the last thing I saw him, I heard him. That is the importance of what Jeevan is attempting to do. So what have we done all these years? We started talking about it in 2005. Nothing happened till 2008. But finally, with all the borrowed monies and being a not-for-profit still, it came to light in 2008 November. And as of today, we have raised enough money just to create an inventory of 600 cord blood donations processed and ready for use for patients with these two diseases specifically. We get an average of 5 requests a week from across the globe from Indians. And we do not find a match. With 600 we can't find a match. We know if we have 5,000, the chances of finding a match is maybe 2 out of 10. When you go to the inventory of 30,000, it's probably 6 out of 10. When you go to the inventory of 50,000, imagine there are 20 million births happening. We're talking 50,000 over 2, 3, 4, 5 years. The chances go as high as 70% of people finding a match. with a cure rate of over 70%. But with all this having said, we are waiting that what we are doing is right. And it did happen on the 1st of August, probably 116 days back. The first unit of stem cell was released for treatment of a 5-year-old boy with this fatal bone marrow disease, where he was not producing his own red cells and white cells and platelets. And today, the boy is extremely fine, we are happy, our processes are working, our thinking is working, our philosophy is working. So what is it all about now? You end up starting your career somewhere, you're starting something on the blood bank, and ending up starting a public stem cell bank, hoping to cure children with blood cancers and thalassemia. Why is not, when we had started about the project, all that we thought of was only one thing. We need 30,000 Indians, Indian diaspora, Indian corporates, who each needs to support the cost of processing one cord blood donation, which essentially is just 30,000 rupees, not $45,000 for the same quality. Probably our calculation went somewhere wrong. I was doing something wrong personally. So I said, what is it I'm doing wrong? It's time for me to learn at the age of 57. I went back to school last year, put my backpack again, took up a program on a social impact, international program on social impact for 9 months. And finally I learned what I was doing wrong. Came back, finished the graduation in March this year. At the end of the final pitch on the graduation, someone walked up and said, "See me in my office tomorrow." That started the story. And we launched a campaign 3 days back on the internet called Be the Cure, BeTheCure.in. He gave us such a simple tip. You are chasing a rainbow, you are wanting to go on a big ship and find it. There are several small boats. Why don't you start chasing 1,000,000 Indians? Each could contribute 1,000 rupees. Not in 1 year, maybe 1 rupee a day, 365 days a year, 3 years. You can't even spend the whole money in 1 year collecting the inventory. So we went online 3 days back. Soft launch was done. We were hoping to do that. I'm here today to sort of share that story and say that it's not, we can be social entrepreneurs, or we can also support something which touches you and me. Motivated for what? Let's understand, social entrepreneurship is all about something being selfish somewhere. Anything you talk about in terms of a social domain, you put all your effort to create something. Maybe creating a blood bank on a not-for-profit is a selfish motive, because my colleague and co-founder of Jeevan walked into my room, opened the door on the 31st of 1984, December 1994, and asked, when you go home today, if you're hit by the lorry, where do you want your blood to come from? It is her frustration of 3 years of fighting with me that resulted in the birth of Jeevan Blood Bank. On the 1st of January, we said we are going live. 9 months and 24 days, the baby was delivered. So the story which started 2005 is still continuing. And as I said, any social entrepreneurship program can never succeed unless the community which benefits in it participate in it. We don't know which one of us will get a call saying that we need to find a match for so and so. And we have an expiry date. I always say that there is only one thing which comes in this earth with the manufacturing date and an expiry date, but where the expiry date label is not visible and it's not mandatory to put it on the product so that it's visible. That's you and me. So we don't know when we will need it. We don't know when someone close to us will need it. I think it is our responsibility, the responsibility of all of us who are going to benefit from it, and participate. This is just one program that I'm talking about. Any social impact program cannot succeed unless and until all of us become lunatic and walk through and chase the dream and help the people to live a normal life as long as they're destined to live. Join us in the dream of being the cure. Thank you.